The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Get up to 1K in a positive match when you sign by Underdog Fantasy, the promo code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently early Tuesday morning, July 29th, around 1:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm Rosso with Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the outrights and the preview of Toronto. Yes, I am aware the event started already, but it's not my fault. Unfortunately, there were so many matches in qualifying that got delayed because of rain that the outright odds were really never posted at a reasonable time frame for me to record an episode. So we had to skip the first couple days, but of course the main players have not played yet. They all have buys in the first round. So we're going to break down the outrights for the event. Now, we finally have odds, thank God. However, we have no quarter odds, so apologies there. We only have the outrights to win the event, so we're going to deal with what we have, but that's still better than nothing. So point is, should be a bit of a shorter episode than most 1,000 events, because normally we have quarter odds. Not in this case, because a lot of quarters already started, so apologies there. But you know what? At least we have odds. Good enough for me. Anyway, a point is moving on to the actual recap of the last episode, which was the final in DC. Before we get to that, though, a reminder, you can support the show by liking, subscribing on YouTube. And a reminder, the podcast is also available on Spotify and Apple. So you can support the show either on YouTube or you can do it on audio formats only, Spotify and Apple. So don't forget to check out both platforms. Don't forget to like, subscribe on YouTube, and don't forget to leave a rating and a review on Spotify and Apple to help the show grow. Plus, a reminder, check out the actual merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great merch for tennis. We have sweatshirts, we have t-shirts, we have mugs. High quality, very affordable, and different colors as well. Plus, a reminder, check out the football previews from the network because the Sports Game Podcast is back with the 32 NFL team previews. They're also bringing back the phrase that pays. Each episode has a key word of a 32-word phrase. Enter the entire phrase for a chance to win a $1,000 circa future. Anyway, starting off with the recap of what happened in DC and the final between de Minaur and Fokina. We got everything right. It felt great. We called it to a T. We thought it'd be a war. We thought Fokina would choke. We thought de Minaur would win. For the lock, a nice win with the team total over 12.5 for de Minaur at -120, as he eventually won the match outright in 3 sets. Flew over, though, as the first set was a close loss for him. Dominated the second set, and at that point, we were kind of coasting. Nice win there for the lock. For the dog, same game parlay. We had the over 19.5 games in the match, parlayed with de Minaur money line at +100. And of course, most importantly, we had the outright. We had de Minaur to win DC at around 8-1. So overall, a perfect outcome for us. A marathon win for de Minaur. We won the lock, won the dog, and most importantly, we won the outright. Great outright episode for us, as we won de Minaur in Washington, and we also won Bublik in Kitzbühel at around 3-1. So a great episode, a great week for us. We'll try to keep rolling here in Toronto. Now, I got to dive into the match in itself because it was a very predictable choke job by Davidovich Fokina, which we know has been his legacy up to this point. I've said many times on this show, I think he's the best player of all time to never win an ATP title. And I also think he's the biggest choker in the history of the sport. So to get into the actual breakdown of the match in itself, Fokina had a classic good start. Then he basically punted the entire second set when de Minaur raised his level, fell behind a break early, and you eventually saw him really find a way back into rhythm. Because you figured de Minaur was going to raise his level, and he did. Fokina rolled over and said, you know what, I'll save my energy for the third set. And he jumped him. Simply put, Fokina was up by a lot. He was up 4-1 in the third set. And you felt like maybe Fokina would finally get over the finish line. Instead, you got just absolute chaos for about 45 minutes. So for the match in itself, he was up 4-1. He was up 5-2. Now he's serving for the match at 5-3. We've been here before. It was 5-3, 30 love. He's 2 points away from winning on his own serve. And he chokes. He loses 4 points in a row. Okay, we're back on serve. You see de Minaur struggling with his serve. You see Fokina get 3 match points while returning, including one epic rally that featured a stab, I'd say, play by de Minaur on the baseline, a stab lob, so to speak, which landed on the actual line, and then he won the point. So Fokina had 3 match points. He served for the match. He choked again, and then he lost in the tiebreak. What an absolute heartbreaker. I would argue that the loss in Delray was worse because Kekmanovic is conceptually a much worse opponent than de Minaur. But damn, man, he chokes every big match. It was insane watching it live. It was just full of drama. It was full of chaos. And de Minaur ended up getting the job done in 3. I can't believe that, once again, we cashed everything. I figured that de Minaur, if it was going to get close, would find a way to win. But finding ways to blow another 3 match points and to blow a 30-love lead while serving for your first title. And you did the same thing in Delray, and you ended up losing in the final in Makic. There were no match points involved there. He lost in straight sets, but still. Fokina is just cursed at this point. I don't really know what else to tell you. De Minaur did what he needed to do. He got the job done. He did just enough to survive, barely. But damn, Fokina's matches end in heartbreaking fashion. And I think that it's not hyperbole. I think he's the biggest choker in the history of tennis. And I think that he is the best player ever to never win a single ATP title. I hope he wins at some point. He's too talented to do so. But I still think that Fokina will find a way eventually to win a title. He's been through too many close calls to not finally get over the finish line. But damn, man, you got to figure it out. And it worked to our benefit. So once again, sorry to hear about anybody that had Fokina to get the job done. Heartbreaking loss there. We saw de Minaur consoling Fokina on the chair after, and Fokina was basically just head and towel for about 10 minutes. I'm not surprised, but it worked out to our benefit. So once again, we won everything. We won the lock, won the dog, and we also won the outright, most importantly, at 8-1. Now to get into Toronto. Spoiler, it's going to be a bit more underwhelming than most years because we have no serious stars in the event. I know you have Zverev, you have Fritz, etc., but you have no Alcaraz, you have no Sinner, you have no Djokovic, and even Draper is not here. So you're missing basically the top 4 for the event. So we'll see who wins this pretty weak 1,000 field. Yes, you still have a couple of top 10 guys, but you're missing none of the big 3 right now, and you have no Draper as well. It's a significantly weaker field than normal, so we'll see how that impacts the outrights for the event. Anyway, for the outrights, for the actual event, the recent winners over the years, we had a Cinderella run by Popyrin last year against Rublev. You might remember he ended up coming back against Dimitrov. I believe he fought off a couple of match points that eventually did carry that second life to a title. You saw Sinner beat de Minaur in the final the year prior. Carreño Busta, who actually won today, good for him, ended up beating Hurkacz in the final a couple years ago, and Medvedev did beat Opelka in the final a few years ago as well. A reminder for the actual event, this is the event, the one event of the year where the men and women alternate locations. Last year, the men were in Montreal. Now they're in Toronto. Now the women are in Montreal, and they just alternate every year. So even though Popyrin did win last year, that was technically in a different city. That was in Montreal, but it was the same event. Now, the courts are basically playing the exact same speed every year in those 2 events, so it shouldn't matter too much. But for clarification, the last winner in Toronto was technically Sinner, to be clear. Now, for the actual quarters, I do see it being mentioned right now by Wipeout in the comment section that Bet365 did post quarter odds. However, I didn't actually look through them because I didn't see them being posted. So I guess they were uploaded a couple minutes ago. But I'll go through them when I get into the outrights, and I'll mention who I think has value in each quarter. No official quarter plays unless I state otherwise, but I do want to point out that it was news to me right after I hit the live button that there are quarter odds available. So we're going to get into the quarters, and we'll get into the outrights in a second. Before we get into the actual breakdown of those outright markets, a reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is MyBookie.ag. It's available in a ton of locations. You can bet on baseball, WNBA, golf, tennis, and of course, football futures. They accept customers in a ton of locations. As I mentioned before, use crypto when you deposit and get fast payouts with crypto. And a reminder to sign up for your new account, use code SGPN to get a special 100% does match up to 1K. Terms and conditions to MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, because they have power trends, which are the best for what the house model has to offer. They're available for baseball and for WNBA. They've been really good all season. And a reminder for the actual win rates for baseball, 63%. For the Power Trends on Baseball, WNBA is 35-20 since launch. Download the app, check out Power Trends, start getting smarter. And a reminder, there's a free trial if you want to access the app for a week. Use the link sportscampodcast.com to get your 7-day free trial. We're also brought to you by Circa Million because Circa, of course, is still doing their contests. We have a lot of great contests going on for Circa Million, Circa Survivor, and of course you have the Circa Grandissimo with over 21 million in guaranteed prizes. You can call yourself a true DGen if you're not competing in the Circa football contest. A reminder, you're coming out as SGPN at the Circa contest weekend, August 21st, 23rd. An amazing weekend, including live shows and open bars. Plus, you get 15% off your stay at Circa with code SGP15. Contest open to everyone. Sign up in Nevada, play for anyone with the help of SGPN's official proxy at footballcontest.com. Use the code SGP, $50 off your proxy fees. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scam Podcast. Finished recapping the final in DC. Time to move on into the preview of Toronto. Now, once again, we now have quarter odds available. I'll read off the regular quarter odds first. So for the quarters, the first quarter, you have Zverev as the favorite at plus 162. You have Medvedev at 3-1. You have Rune at 7-1, who hopefully actually shows up this time. He was supposed to play last week. He was at the event and he dropped out. So we'll see what happens. He's been training with Agassi and company. We'll see if the new coaching changes are going to have any improvements for his actual game. Greek Sports at 10-1. You have the defending champion, Papiron, at 11-1. You have Sarundalo at 11-1. Pericard 14-1. Arnaldi 16-1. You have Kikmanovic at 18-1. Munar 22-1. To be honest, nobody else has a chance. Shout out to School Cat, though. A nice win against Fonseca in the first round. And Walton looked okay, but he has a matchup against Zverev. He's at 100-1 if you want to win the actual quarter. Now, Zverev should be the favorite in the quarter because, of course, he's a top 5 guy, top 10 guy, etc. But the point is, this tournament, when you're missing Alcaraz, Sinner, and Djokovic, it's a bunch of head cases. So you might see another chaos dream run by a long shot in this event, like we saw last year. But the point is, I'm looking at the actual quarter, and Zverev should be favored. Do I trust him? No, because he can't beat Medvedev. And when Medvedev's the second favorite and he's owned the head-to-head, I don't trust Zverev. The problem is, do I trust Medvedev? Hell no. Especially after the loss to Moutet, I don't trust him at all at 3-1. Rune's the wild card because at 7-1, maybe he's able to look sharp. Then again, it's Rune we're talking about, so you cannot feel too good about it. But for the actual draw, he has Pericard in the first round. Pericard ended up facing off against Mochizuki in the first round. Basically a bye, but he's really not been playing well for the last couple of months. So Rune has the better return, and that can be enough maybe to win. But when you have not played a match in a while, and now you have to face off against the best server in the entire world right now, I do think you're looking at a pretty tough return spot for Rune. He might win anyway, but I can see him losing in this matchup. So I'm going to pass on Rune. I thought about it just to avoid taking Zverev and taking, once again, Medvedev, but I don't really trust either guy. I think I'll go for a long shot and I'll call it a day, but I really am not going to have much action for the outrights for the quarters, for the first quarter especially, because I don't trust any of these damn guys. Greek Sport I thought about because he's had a couple of competitive run-ins with Zverev this year. However, do I like his actual draw? Not really. He has Echeverry, then Sarundalo. Not bad, but you have Zverev in the third round, which can get a bit tricky, or the fourth round, I should say. So Greek Sport maybe, if you think he can get by Zverev, but I'm not exactly feeling great about it. And the fact is he's not played on hard court much lately. Most of these guys have not. So I think that you're looking at Greek Sport 10-1, and maybe being intriguing. I'll pass, though. Do I think that Papiron has anything in the tank for this actual quarter? Now, he has a complete unknown Canadian in his first matchup, which he should win. Medvedev in the second round, which I think he'll lose, but he can beat Medvedev, so I'm not going to write that off. And then you have Rune, who he could beat in the third. Maybe go for a spin for it. I do think that there's some value on Greek Sport, though. When you're looking at the Munar and Sarundalo matchup there, then the winner would face off against them in the next round. I'll take a spin for it. I think that if you want to make an argument only going long shots here, I don't hate it. But Medvedev I can't trust, and Zverev I can't trust either. So I guess I'm going with Greek Sport at 10-1, and I'll throw in Papiron at 11-1. I'm not going to throw anybody else in there. Pericard, his matchup's too tough against Rune, so I'll cancel both those guys out. But for the sake of the first quarter, Once again, not really going to be slamming these, but I do think for value, Greek Sport 10 to 1, and I'll throw in Papyron at 11 to 1 as my two thoughts there for the first quarter. Moving on to the second quarter, we have Kashanov as the favorite at plus 450. So this is definitely an extremely chaotic quarter here. Kashanov's at 450, Shapo's at 5 to 1, Mussetti's at 5 to 1, Rude's at 6 to 1. You have Mickelson at 650. You have Humbert at 750. Makic 9 to 1, who has not played since Wimbledon. You have Borges at 10 to 1. Opelka 16 to 1, who beat Offner in straight sets in the first round. Safulin at 22 to 1. Nava 33 to 1. You kind of get the point, but there is a mention for Tien, who's at 25 to 1. Now, for the initial quarter odds here, I do want to point out that I actually do like Kashanov's draw quite a bit. So Kashanov for his draw has Fikovic in the first round, or first matchup. Then he has Humbert or Nava. Nava's been decent, had a nice win against Bergs in the first round. You could argue that Kashanov would be favored in that one. I do think that you could argue that there's value on both Kashanov and Humbert because it is a very open quarter. And I do think both guys on a hard court should be dangerous in this event. Now, I'm going to skip Rude. Simply put, he's not played enough. He's not been healthy. I'll pass on him there. I'm not saying he's going to lose to Safulin, but I do think that Rude is more vulnerable because I don't really know what his current state is physically for the contest. So I'm going to skip Rude. I'm not interested in general. I think his draw is okay with Bagnes or Borges into the next round, but I think Safulin can maybe beat Rude. We'll see what happens. But I think there's some value on Kashanov. I think that it makes sense he's favored. Fikovic is a pretty good draw for him. Nava's been playing okay hardcore tennis lately. I think Humbert should beat him, but he's not played in a while. So we'll see if Rust plays a factor. But give me Kashanov at 450. I think he'll raise his level in the 1,000 event, and I think that he has a pretty decent draw. Now, for the other people that you can consider for this quarter, I know Shapo is going to be a common choice because it's in Canada, tends to play well in Canada. I don't mind his draw. It's not as good as Kashanov's. He has Tien. He has more firepower than Tien, but Tien could frustrate him with his consistency. Then he has Opelka or Makic, who I think he should beat in the second, match that he has to play in the event. Opelka is still not a great rallier by any means, and we know Makic is good, but he's not played since Wimbledon. He's had durability issues too all year. So I think Shapo's draw is okay if he gets past Tien, but I do think the crowd support will help him. He's in the same immediate section as Musetti, who I've said many times before is not a great hardcore player. I see an open quarter, and the fact that Musetti is ranked as the main ranked guy in that quarter, and he's not even favored to win the actual section, tells you that Musetti is vulnerable, and I think that can open some pathways for Kashanov and for Shapo. I might go a bit bolder here, though. I'll go Kashanov at 450. I'll go Shapo at 5 to 1, and I'll throw in Humbert at 750. Because I do think whoever wins that Kashanov and Humbert match has a great path to the quarterfinals. So once again, give me those three guys as my option. Makic, I thought about, but I don't trust him physically enough. I think that he gets injured too much. And for a 1,000 event, I need to get some confirmation that he will physically be able to survive playing this many matches. I do not feel confident enough in Makic. So I'll pass on him there. I'll go with those three guys as my choices for the second quarter. Look at the comment section, though. I see a couple of people stopping by. I see Innocent stopping by from South Africa. So shout out to you for stopping by. Hopefully you enjoy the content. I see Adrian stopping by from Arizona. I see Ibis enjoying the Demon win. A nice job by Demon Hour for us. I see Manzi stopping by. And I also see JP stopping by, who's new to the show. Welcome, JP. Hopefully you enjoy the content. Hopefully you are able to catch us for future episodes. Anyway, moving on to the third quarter for Toronto. This quarter is the De Minaur quarter. Does he have much left in the tank? We don't know. But De Minaur only dropped 2 sets in the event. We'll see how he recovers. He had a bye in the first round, so we'll see how he looks. But he's favored at plus 240. Shelton is at 250. Tiafoe's at 7 to 1. You have Felix at 8 to 1. Gaboli 10 to 1. Tsitsipas 11 to 1 with whoever his new coach is. I think it's his dad again. But it's not going to be Ivanisevic, so keep that in mind. Nagashima at 12 to 1. Nori at 16 to 1. You have a bunch of unknowns at the end. If you want to go for the veterans, you have Morozin at 28 to 1 as the last young guy. Manarino at 33 to 1. Nice win against Giron in straight sets. You have Vukic at plus 5,000. Quinn at 6,600. And you have Watanuki at around 8 to 1. Komasanya is 150 to 1. whatever. So for this immediate quarter, if de Minaur is fully healthy and recovered, I'll take him. Do I know if he's healthy or not? No. Now, he looked fine. He was survived to the end against Fekina. Was on Fekina physically on fumes at the end. De Minaur looked fine. Now, once again, it wasn't an easy win for him, but I thought physically he showed no signs of slowing down. So I do think that he should be fine. He's one of the more fit players on tour anyway. We saw two guys win back-to-back titles last week with Darderi and with Bublik. Not the exact same, because this is a 1,000 event, but still. I think de Minaur's got a decent draw. The problem is Tsitsipas, despite how much we've been roasting him for a while on this podcast, Tsitsipas owns him in the head-to-head. It is very lopsided in favor of Tsitsipas, so even if de Minaur can't get the job done against him, do I feel great at that price when his nemesis, quote-unquote, his boogeyman, is a potential matchup immediately in the field? I don't feel great about that. So to mention the head-to-head, because I want to prove to all of you, I'm not making it up. So for the head-to-head, Tsitsipas is an incredible 11-1 against de Minaur. Now, they faced off in a couple events last year in Acapulco and in Rome. I will point out that de Minaur did beat him on a hard court in the most recent hard court meeting. The fact is, though, when you're 1-11 against a guy, I don't know if I care about that guy's current form. Tsitsipas has just owned him repeatedly, and he's plus 240. I'm not going to take de Minaur. I'm not really that interested for the value on de Minaur after that marathon final he had. He should be recovered by then, but Tsitsipas has owned him historically. It scares me off a bit, to be honest. Now, Shelton, on the other hand, we saw a no-show the semifinal matchup against Fekina, but he was in great form prior to that matchup. Now, do I like the draw for Shelton? Said before, the de Minaur draw is not great because Tsitsipas owns him. As for Shelton, his draw is okay. I'll put it that way. He has a bye, then he has Manarino. I think he'll beat Manarino. Then he has Nakashima, who he's beaten repeatedly, but the sets have been close. Nakashima looked pretty good in the last event. Did lose to de Minaur, eventual champion in straight sets. I thought he played pretty well, and you could argue that anytime you're getting breakers and some long sets, there's a chance that Nakashima finally beats Shelton. But assuming Shelton does win that, he would have to face off against Felix or Caboli. I think Shelton has a decent draw. I know we have a bitter, I'd say, feeling of emotion towards Shelton based on what happened in the semifinal matchup against Fekina. But the draw's not that bad. He's still a good hardcourt player. I think it makes sense for him to actually make a decent run here. I don't mind Shelton at 250. I think he can beat Felix, who's been pretty underwhelming for the last couple of months. Caboli is a good player. We saw Caboli, though, get killed by Tiafoe in straight sets on hard court last week. I think Shelton could beat him as well. I'll go with Shelton at 250. I think there might be some value for that one. However, this is going to kill me because it involves one of my least favorite players to bet on, and I might actually consider him. You know what was a great draw in this event? Tiafoe. Tiafoe's draw is really, really good, but I can't stand the damn guy. And Andrew was mentioning, I mentioned it earlier, it's a tournament full of clowns. It is a full clown car event. I agree, Andrew. I am not going to be wagering much on the outrights for this event, but I might sprinkle in a couple long shots just in case. However, since we just mentioned on Q, there are a bunch of clowns in the event, I got to make an argument for Tiafoe because the draw is very nice. He has Watanuki in the first match after a bye. He has Nori, most likely, because Vukic isn't worth a damn. Nori, I know, can be tricky, but I think Tiafoe's better than Nori, personally. Then you have either Tsitsipas or de Minaur. If Tsitsipas beats de Minaur, like head-to-head suggests, then suddenly you have an open quarter. That could be interesting. Andrew, once again, I understand it's stay-away type of event. I'm not saying I'm going to be betting a ton on these guys, but if I'm making an argument for path alone, for actual draw, Tiafoe's draw is not bad. Do I like Tiafoe? No. Do I trust Tiafoe? No. I think at the end of the day, the odds, though, seem generous for the path that he actually has. And I have to make an argument for some guys to consider. I might avoid Tiafoe at a principle, but 7-1 with that draw is not that bad. Thought about Caboli. Would he beat Felix in Canada? I don't know. Honestly, the third quarter is really tough. I'll go Shelton at 250. That's kind of it. I got nothing else. But Tiafo, if you have more courage than I do, and maybe less bias, Tiafo at 7-1 doesn't look that bad. So I'll mention that as my third quarter. Moving on to the last quarter. This is the Fritz quarter at plus 175. You have Mensik at around 375. You have Rublev at around 650. Leshka at 7-1. Fees is back from injury at 7-1. You have Fakina off of the painful loss there to Deminaur at 9-1. You have Diallo at 12-1. You have Sonego at 18-1. Mutet at 28-1. You have Boo at 4,000. McDonald at 6-1. You kind of get the point. So for the actual favorite of the quarter, Fritz. Now, Fritz should have beaten Fakina. He ran out of gas. Did he choke while serving for the match? Yes, he did. The last couple games, I'll give him a pass, honestly. He was completely out of gas and he died. I got nothing else to add. The problem is his draw's not great because he has a very easy matchup in the second round as he takes on Baena. However, Diallo in Canada in the third round is not great for Fritz. That's a pretty tough draw. I like the draw for Fees, who has Busta in the next round. Busta had a nice marathon win against Droxel in the first matchup. I think Fees should win. If Fees is healthy, I actually like him quite a bit in the section. The problem is I know what to expect from him physically. I think Leheshka has some value based on his form and his overall skill set on hard court. He was the only guy to really, besides Fakina, test Deminaur in the first couple rounds. He won a set against Deminaur, did lose in 3. I don't mind Leheshka for this actual section. I like the value there. You can argue that based on the actual pricing, even if Fees is a bit of a wild card for this quarter, 7-1 for Leheshka, I really don't mind. I think it's not that bad. Now, Mensik's also not played much tennis lately. He's not been also that good lately, but he won in Miami. So he already has a hardcore title, a 1,000 title this year. Do I like him at 375? I'm kind of on the fence. Boyer looked decent against Kovacevic, did not get broken in this matchup. Boyer's a guy we faded on clay. On hardcourt, he's not that bad. So you have two decent servers going at it. He could, in theory, lose. Now, Fakina could maybe beat him as well. Fakina does have a bye in the first round, so maybe he can mentally reset and physically reset, and it'll look decent. Not a great draw, though, for Mensik. So I'm going to pass on a couple of the main guys here. Instead, I'll go for a bolder play because they play each other earlier than you'd hope for the actual, once again, quarter. I'm skipping Rublev, by the way. I don't give a damn. I'm not picking Rublev. I can't trust him at all. So for me, I'll go with Leheshka at around 7-1, and I'll go with Fees at 7-1 as my super wild card. Diallo 12-1, maybe, but the Fritz matchup's not ideal. He could beat Fritz. We know they had a marathon there in Wimbledon. But 12-1, I'll pass on that. I wasn't a fan of how he played against Shelton in the last event. So I'll go with a couple of longer shots here that once again, one of them's going to lose pretty quickly. But give me Leheshka at 7-1 and give me Fees as my wild card at 7-1. I like how Fees played on hardcourt earlier this year, and I think he's a pretty underrated hardcourt player. If he's healthy, I'll take a flyer. I'll go with him there as my other choice. So once again, for the actual outrights here for the quarters in Toronto, kind of going off the script. I wasn't expecting to have quarter odds, and it got posted about 10 minutes before we started. So either way, for the first quarter, I'm going to go with Greek Sport 10-1 and Papyron at 11-1. I'll skip the favorites. No value for me. I don't trust anybody out of the favorites here in the first quarter. Second quarter, I'm going to go pretty chalky. Give me Kashanov at 450. Give me Shapo at 5-1, and give me Humbert at 750. For the third quarter, I'm going to skip Deminaur because he has a boogeyman, and his name is Tsitsipas. I'm going to go with Shelton at 250. I mentioned Tiafo at 7-1 as a good draw candidate. I can't stand the damn guy, so I'll go with Shelton at 250. Moving on to the fourth quarter, I'm going to go with Leheshka at 7-1 and Fees at 7-1. Anyway, moving on to the outrights for the actual event in itself to win the event. So for the outright prices, quickly just pulling up the actual banner that I'm looking for. So for the outrights, I alluded to it before. I'm going to go a bit creative for this market. Now for the odds here, Zverev's the favorite at 5-1, Fritz 550, Shelton at 8-1. You have Deminaur at 850, You have Medvedev at 10-1, Mensik at 16-1. You have Shapo at 22-1. You have Rune at 25-1, and Musetti 28-1. Gashanov 28-1. You have Leheshka at 28-1. Felix 28-1. Fees 28-1. Rublev 28-1. You have Tiafo at 30-1. Ruud at 30-1. Tsitsipas 35-1. You kind of get the point. If you want to go for Fekina for the hell of it, 40-1. I see Humbert is at 40-1 as well. Greek Sports 40-1. You get the point. So for the favorites, am I taking anybody? No, I have no interest at all. Zverev, I can't trust. Fritz, I don't really want to trust with that draw with Diallo early on. Shelton, I think makes sense. Do I trust him enough? Not really. 8-1's okay. Like, I don't hate it. I think you can argue for a case with it. I don't think his draw is amazing. That's kind of what scares me off, though, for part of it for Shelton. So instead, I'm going to go with a bit of a bolder approach. I'm going long shots only for this event. As Andrew mentioned before, it's a tournament full of clowns. And you know what? I might take some spins with it, but I'm not going to go with chalk. I don't see enough value and trust with the players associated with the cheaper lines. So I'm going to skip most of the cheaper priced guys. Now, that's going to open up some chances for some longer shots. So I'm going to make an argument for a guy who nobody can trust, but I do like the fact that it's in Canada, and historically, he has been quite good in this event. Give me Shapo at 22-1. Do I like it? A little bit. Do I love it? No. But you know what? 22-1, I'll make an argument for it. So Shapo, his actual draw is not that bad. You're looking at him against Tien in the first round, Moncature Opelka in the second round. He's in the immediate section, though, as Musetti, which does open up some chances. I think that quarter is very open. Gashanov, we said before, is the favorite in that quarter at 450. I'll make an argument for Gashanov at 22-1. Do I love it? Not really. But you know what? I'm going to be willing to be wrong to take some long shot flyers and what I think is a very open event. Give me Shapo if the crowd's behind him at 22-1 as my first choice. Give me Leheshka, though, at 28-1 as well. I think Leheshka has a very solid game on hard court. We saw him give Dimenauer, the future champion, a run for his money. Not a bad draw. Has a bye, then McDonald, then maybe Fees, but Fees, we'll see how healthy he is. Then he has Fritz. I think he might be able to actually beat Fritz, and Diallo can maybe upset Fritz for us if Fritz physically can't recover from the marathon that he lost against Fekina in the semis in DC. Give me 28-1 for Leheshka. I think the price there is decent. And last but not least, give me Gashanov at 30-1. I think it's a decent draw. I think it's pretty weird that Gashanov is 30-1 to win the event, and Musetti so on DraftKings, he's 28-1. And Musetti's 28-1 as well, but Gashanov's favored to win the quarter. And they're in the same quarter. So I don't really get that at all. But Gashanov, we know, historically speaking, tends to raise his level in bigger events. It's why he's been good in Grand Slams. It's why he tends to make some noise in 1,000 events. I think 3,000 is a decent price. I like his draw a lot. I think there's some value with that. He has Fikovic in his first match after the bye, then Humbert or Nava. We'll see how Humbert's form is. He's not been very good the last couple months. Ruud's in his immediate section too. I'll go for the draw there. But once again, if you want to go for a favorite, you want to go for Zverev or Shelton or Fritz, good luck to you. But for this actual event, I don't see any value backing guys that I really don't trust. So for me, I'll go for a couple of longer shots. Good enough for me. We'll go from there. So once again, the outrights, I'm going to go with a couple of sprinkles. Keyword sprinkles. Do not put a ton of units on these. I'm just going to get creative because I don't trust any of the favorites in the event. Give me Shapo at 22-1. Give me Leheshka at 28-1. And give me Gashanov at 30-1. Maybe borrowing from the Papyron playbook. Give me guys with the long odds that have some firepower that can maybe play well on the fast-paced courts here in Toronto. Good enough for me. Give me those three guys as my outrights for the events. Going to wrap it up there for the outrights. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks for the second round, I guess. Once again, apologies. But before we get into the actual lock and dog picks, a reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is OnlyFans, because you're doing Bestmania, happening all summer long. You only 15 million in prizes, including 2 million in first place. You have no waiver wire. You have no arguments about trades. The best ball is the best way to play fantasy football. To be honest, I've never done a best ball lineup before, but I know that it's very big at SGPN. Kramer does that 24-hour stream with drafts. It's a very popular, I'd say increasingly popular fantasy option if you want to go for that. And once again, 15 million in prizes, which is definitely fun to consider. 2 million for first place. Think about that. You win one fantasy competition and you can retire. That's pretty fun. Anyway, though, a reminder, you can also use Underdog for your pick'em entries. They have tennis on those too. If you want to include those, you win up to 500 times your entry. But a reminder, when you sign up for your entry and for your account, use the code SGPN to get a special 100% odds match up to 1K. And you can also check out the special pick. First time deposit offer. Once again, 100% offer up to 1K in bonus credits. Underdog Fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the outrights for Toronto. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I'm going to go to the matchup between Boyer and Mensik. And for this one, give me the Mensik team total over 12.5 at -110. Team totals were good to us. We won the lock on the last episode with Dimonara team total. I'll go to the Mensik one at -110. This was on Bet365. I find this line very cheap. Mensik tends to go over anyway. He's a very good server, and he's really not a great returner. The courts are playing somewhat fast on, once again, the Toronto courts, and I think you're looking at a pretty good opportunity for at least one long set between him and Boyer. Mensik, though, has gone over this team total in 7 of his last 8 hardcore matches. He won a title in Miami, a 1,000, because he was so good in tie breaks. The point is he's still going to long sets. There's also been a 7-5 or 7-6 set in 6 of Mensik's last 8 hardcore matches. Once again, a bit of a long set magnet. We only need one of those for this to cash. Plus, Boyer has been involved in a couple of long sets too. There's been a 7-5 or a 7-6 set in 6 of Boyer's last 7 matches. He was not broken in the entire match against Kovacevic. So the point is he serves well from what we saw on the courts here. I think Mensik will serve well too. Give me a bit of a longer match, or at least one long set. Good enough for me. Give me Mensik team total over 12.5 as my lock at -110. For the dog, going to stick with the fast courts theme here. Give me the Opelka and Makic match. Give me the first set over 10.5 games at +125. So the first set total over has cashed in 7 of Opelka's last 9 matches. Of course, he went to a breaker against Offner in the first round of this event, but the first set total's also gone over in 4 of Makic's last 6 matches. Now, he has not played since Wimbledon, so maybe rust will play a factor, which could be a problem. But the head-to-head's also supporting the play because 4 of these 7 career sets between them have ended in a tiebreak. So you've seen a bunch of long sets. You're looking at, once again, Opelka being a tiebreak magnet, and you're also looking at Makic, who's a good server too. I don't see many breaks happening. I think you're looking at both sets for Opelka against Makic, potentially being marathon sets. We saw him against Offner. That ended up resulting in a 7-6, 7-5 faced off in the Aussie Open this year that also had a couple of tie breaks in it. The point is, I think this price is generous. 7-5 or 7-6 doesn't matter. +125 is a very good price, in my opinion, for 2 good servers. I know Makic hasn't played in a while, but he's still a good server, and we know Opelka is an atrocious returner. Give me a bunch of holds here. Give me the first set over 10.5 as my dog for the show. So once again, the plays, the lock's going to be on Mensik team total over 12.5 games -110. For the dog, give me the Opelka Makic first set over 10.5 games at +125. It's going to wrap it up for the show. A reminder, back once again later on in the event. Not exactly sure when, because events are going to be finishing throughout the day. We'll go from there. I'm going to aim for the round of 16, but no promises. We'll go from there. Anyway, until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets.